My name is Daniel Cummins. I work for the University of Kansas Health System. I'm a network engineer, and I'm reviewing the Catalyst 9800 wireless controller. It's the central controller. There's actually two HA systems, so each data center has a wireless controller, and about 2,000 APs converge to each one. That number is going to grow to about 3,000 APs per controller, and they're used in an active-active N+1 setup. So all of our wireless is done in central switching. We don't do any flex connect or local switching. So all wireless traffic converges to just these two boxes. Particularly well, I think updates are great. ISSU upgrading code is fantastic. I think the speed with which CapWrap converges or reconverges, I think the redundancy mechanisms for roaming APs to other controllers is very good. I think overall, getting away from more of a monolithic processor where sub-processes handle what they call the WNCD tasks, I think fundamentally is an improvement in performance. Troubleshooting, yeah, the radioactive tracing, all of the troubleshooting and all of the logging and all of the importing and exporting features for logging and analytics within the controller itself is really, really good compared to the predecessor AirOS. So the big one for me is tables. When you go to look at an inventory of, an AP monitoring or client monitoring, it truncates the list to only 100 items in the view of this table, even if there's thousands or tens of thousands of entries. And so if you go to sort a column, it's only sorting the portion of the first 500 or first 100 within the table view. That is a big shortcoming of the tool. Being able to filter and sort the live data as it's happening and the live traffic and interactions as it's happening is enormously helpful for a wireless engineer. Exporting that process with any kind of delay defeats the purpose of analyzing real-time issues. So being able to troubleshoot and review data at a glance is a huge lacking problem on this platform compared to its predecessor. The AirOS modern UI, or there's the classic view and the new view. Under the modern UI, with the incorporated in like 8.3, it had a sortable table that let you filter and look at everything. So if I were to look at only the clients that are connected at one particular 802.11 protocol type, I can do that. If I want to sort it by data rates, I can do that. If I want to sort it by interference or SNR, I can do that on AirOS. I cannot do that on the 9800, and it is a big hurdle to being able to answer questions proficiently and quickly. Probably like an 8.5. I think it's still probably a good solid B to B plus product. Again, I think fixing things like the table sorting and things like that would put it squarely in like the A minus category. I don't think anything puts any product in an A plus category, because I think you should always be able to walk away from a vendor or a platform if something better enters the market. But yeah, I think it could very, very easily end up in a 9 if they made some of these improvements. But otherwise, somewhere probably like an 8. Pretty high, but it's, I think it does a lot. Has enough nerd knobs in the controller that if you need to tweak parameters, you need to solve really bizarre problems, it affords you that. And a lot of competitors do not give you the nerd knobs if you know what you're doing on an RF perspective. And so I think, again, it's a leader for a reason. I think it appeals to the engineer. Well, I really like central switching. Central switching is, converging all of the tunnels is fewer people can administer the product. It's much easier to scale. It's much easier to configure, and it's much easier to get predictable results out of that. I have run Flex Connect before under AirOS. I'm proficient with it. Um, but yeah, I think as a centralized controller, it works very well. And I think as building redundancy with regard to not just HASSO, but with an N+1 design, I think it actually. I think the scheme and logic and architecture of the platform is very well thought out. And I don't know what use cases I would find it to be lacking. Yeah, there's a few things when you drill into it. It actually is not that simple. AirOS I feel like was a lot simpler, and so hey, AirOS was a lot simpler, and I think the Catalyst, how it breaks out the hierarchy of configuration, requires each of these tags and profiles and policies and how you bring them together. Um, Actually, even though they've decoupled a lot of these elements from how AirOS did it, I think AirOS having fewer of those features, even though it was less extensible, it was not as easy or intuitive to deploy. So I think the intuition and how you actually construct a 9800, um, that you know an entry engineer would struggle a lot more in a 9800. So I would not recommend the product if somebody did not already have a good foundation of network engineering. Yeah, I mean, I think probably that. You know, I think the ISSU, high availability, redundancy mechanisms, reliability of the hardware, reliability of the code is always a roll of the dice. But honestly, 9. Honestly, it's been just as solid as AirOS. I mean, and I had AirOS controllers that had never rebooted for 2 years when there was not a need, or when you get to the end of life and code doesn't change very often. Um, yeah, I think the 9800s have been incredibly reliable as a pure hardware platform. And yeah, so I'd probably give that a 9. Very reliable tool. No, yeah, I mean, again, I think sometimes the CPU spikes and the GUI times out. And again, I know there are bugs related to code where it wiped out the certificates and then you lost all GUI access entirely. I've not encountered those because I read the release notes very carefully, and I don't upgrade until I make sure that the resolve caveats are well within range of tolerance. Probably 9. I mean, the occasional CPU spike where the management plane is just unavailable or some weird SSH, stall, but otherwise, yeah, probably 9. Yes and no. I mean, I think there's an unnecessary convolution to the rollout of those policies tags and how you integrate them to a group of access points. Again, I get why they did that, because it was seen as though you would recycle a lot of them instead of building unique ones for each. But you find that I have found that if you have a large enough enterprise, you have a large enough vertical or horizontal integration to your enterprise, you find that one site or one class of devices that are in a specific site have very different requirements or very different um, peculiarities or bugs or whatever compatibilities that require you to tailor those sets of parameters and those configurations uh, specifically to that area and that site, but not elsewhere. You know what I mean? And so you find that from your beginning design, it becomes important to think about those things ahead of time, even though none of the tools or none of the design guides or deployment guides really get you thinking in that way. And again, so it's say an experienced person could leverage those tools, or those tools, leverage that design hierarchy more quickly, or more. They could see where the problems would be on the horizon and design around that. But no, I don't think what they were trying to do with that really pays off. Gosh, I mean, I would put it at like a 4 out of 10 in terms of 10 being the simplest and uh, 0 being the hardest. Yeah, I mean, I actually think I think it's too complex. Even as somebody that built a pretty insane architecture within all of those policies and tags, and I think I'm managing probably 85 site tags, among right now, probably like 5,000 access points, and more coming all the time. So, yeah, not a novice on it whatsoever, but yeah, I look forward to what they do in code moving forward to better arrange that sort of problem and help people get the right architecture or design. So yeah, probably like a 4 out of 10. It could be way better actually. Well, the 8540s or 5520s or um, also have a 9800L, which is the lightweight. I've used VWLC. I've used embedded wireless controllers. I've used autonomous APs, converged access, which is like a bad word around here. I've done all that, and including Wisdom 2s, Wisdoms. These are all wireless controllers or wireless products. And yeah, I mean, I think the AirOS 8540s and the 9840 or 80 are really comparable machines. And yeah, so I probably had 12 years, 15 years experience on the 8540 or the AirOS. So all the way from probably code 6 something up through 7 and 8 on that. And yeah, seen it all the way through till its end of life. Yeah, I mean, it is a fair replacement for the 8540. It is mostly capable of being a one-to-one replacement. And so I would put it as a very net positive product. I don't think that there were a lot of pains in migrating from one platform to the other. If again, you knew what you're doing in your design and able to make all that work predictably. And so, very positive. I think overall it's been a very good solution. Um, of the one option out there, it was a very good solution. So I haven't looked at the price recently, and I would say no because they marked these boxes as end of life. I'm gonna go find the people responsible for that. They wanted to replace it with this energy efficient model, and so they were like, "Well, we want to release this new model. Has exactly the same performance characteristics, has exactly the same AP management limits and operations and like everything architecturally, hardware is like almost the same, other than the fact that it's energy efficient. And because they wanted to move to this new model identity, they prematurely marked this one as end of life or end of sale, and already said, oh, we're getting rid of those. Now there's going to be software parity on both of them for a long time, and there's going to be support parity on them for a long time. Um, but no, I think it was a really weird decision for Cisco to introduce this other 9800 energy efficient model. Yeah, I mean, I think from a management perspective, I wish that it had a slightly more greater ability to scale and batch a lot of configuration or changes within it. They added a little in the last code update in like 1712. I want to see more of that. And again, I want to see them fix the table sorting, filtering, so that I can review the whole thing. I don't need, like as I was saying, is like, yes, I can go into the CLI, I can export that, or I can push it to another tool, but like that, you don't need to do that. There's plenty of capability of this tool to actually give you that information at a glance. Considering the tool that was 12 years old does that and better. It should be a no brainer that should be directly on the controller and because not every customer needs to go use a third-party tool or integrate some other, reporting analytics engine. So, yeah, I think focusing just on the 9800 and having that ability. Yeah, yeah, yes, yes, yes. I mean, DNA Center, Catalyst Center still have Prime, still have CMX, Identity Services Engine. I mean, these are Cisco things. But I mean, in the organization, we've got Palo Altos and Infoblocks for IPAM. Yeah, yeah, they're industry leading. I mean, there's competitors and there's some pros and cons to each, but I mean, Palo Alto is not necessarily the highest performer or the best whatever that they tout for security. They just have one of the best GUIs and one of the most wonderfully logical layouts for how you build it and how you define things. And so, yeah, I mean, I prefer working in Palo versus Firepower, ASA, Fortinet. I mean, I maybe another one I've worked in over the years, but yeah, I find that Palo is just sort of like a warm blanket. So